Alright. This is a little jacked up. I'm going to press Alt. How wide are those hips? It's kind of unnatural. It's idealized, of course, but unnatural. Let's just move them out, but I'm moving them out from the back because I want that anterior superior iliac spine to kind of stay where it was. Yeah. Okay, and as you do that, that kind of sets up a few other changes that need to happen. Rib cage. It's definitely not masculine. There we go. Don't forget the armpit, though. Let's do a little texturing. I don't know why. Eh. Too early. Perspective's a little bit intense. I'm going to set this down to 50. That'll look a little bit better. Get rid of that texture. Just swell them together, just like they are in the real world. Could be a great many things wrong with this, but we got ourselves a generic structured torso. Okay, and it didn't take too terribly long, but it's kind of boring, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot we can do. There's finding these lines that go through the body, things like that. But wouldn't it be nice to get this posed? Looks sleek. Just looking around him, looking for the bumps, hills and the valleys and all that stuff that's gonna bring it all together. Alright, and now we're going to have to get a little crazy on him. Do we want to add some legs? No. But let's mask out. And I need to turn lazy mouse off. Don't know why that's on for mask pin. Symmetry is off. If I have a lower subdivision level, now would be a good time. Just gotta find the right. Is that gonna work? No. Well, that might work if I come in here and unpaint, but I don't know what it did down below, so it's a small concern. Alright, let's just see how much trouble we get into. Got into a little trouble. Nothing we can't fix. Backface masking is on as I do this, and all I'm doing is just filling in some volume. I'm doing this with a clay or a topology independent brush, So that's getting around some of these problems that I'm encountering. But, as you probably guessed, I'm not going to sweat the topology. Because if it really starts to cause problems, then I'll just dynamesh it. My main goal right now is just getting a little something in play. And then we do the breakdown. Now we need to start to understand, what's happening. And this is where, not the words, but where the understanding of form is important, as well as having applied it and done this and sculpted this and, had somebody look at it and all that stuff. You're probably not even aware of what I'm doing right now. So why don't I slow down a little bit and let's start talk about what we are doing here. So there's a couple of important elements to know that you can get from any anatomy book. The scapula, when you're in a resting position, is pretty much going to be this little triangular shape that's mostly straight up and down. You got the glenoid cavity, then the humerus, and then that's connecting to the ulna, and then the hand from there. Relatively straightforward, right? The spine of the scapula comes up, that forms the acromion process, and connects to the clavicle. Relatively straightforward. You start to raise your hand up, and then things start to change. And so now, this is going to move slightly this direction. And I'm just doing this off of my imagination, out of my head, sorry. So you'll have to forgive me, but it should go about 60 degrees. It should be rotating around, changing its position, allowing for the glenoid cavity a little higher up, and for the humerus to come there. Okay, it should have shifted a bit. And again, this is anything, you can get this from any anatomy book. You can get this from Googling the position of the shoulder blades. Information like this is not expensive. Applying this information, that's expensive. That's time. Because now you got to think about what it looks like from this angle. Uh-oh, what's happening? Where's it going? I don't know where it's going anymore, right? Things get complicated. So let's start by finding the basics. What would the basics be? Clavicle, acromion process, spine of the scapula, and then from there, what's called the medial border of the scapula. That's basically a Franz Klein impression of a scapula. So first thing first, I want to find the clavicle, and I've raised my arms, and you can see this in yourself. You raise your arms, your clavicles go up. So let's just make the clavicle go up, up, and up. So we went from straight to up. Imagine that. Okay, and then when we're looking at that, it's got the same measurement. So remember, we were at 0.75. So that means the acromion process is going to be right about here. Right there at that 0.75 units. So we know the acromion process, we know the scapula. Whoops. Let's just try a retopology, see if we get into trouble. I'm going to delete the higher. Just go into Dynamesh. Yeah, I think we actually did okay. One of the beauties of this, you just kind of keep recalibrating. Okay. I don't think we lost anything. I mean, we've made some major changes anyways. I am doing this with symmetry on. I will unsymmetricize it to create my own word there. I will undo that at a certain point, but not right now. Okay, acromion process is really something that's slanting back in space, and it's got all kinds of muscles leading up to it. And then it's coming down to the scapula, which the medial border of which is now moved and is sliding towards the front. So we're going to start to trim this lat as well, and the lat is going to start to conform much more to the rib cage because it's getting pulled up, right? It's getting all of its volumes getting swept up there. So we need to keep that in mind. A little bit of trim dynamic, and it's just a bit of rounding that I'm doing, and then I really want to make sure that this is a solid plane, but that it's a solid plane that's kind of wrapping around. Okay, once I have those basics established, I have to go in and start to kind of make everything, well, just really put the muscles in. So on the inside of the spine of the scapula, we've got the trapezius. So what's the trapezius doing? What's the musculature? How's it connecting? All of that stuff. Well, it's going to be flexing. Raise your arms above your head. All of that flexes. One of the muscles in action right there is the trapezius. So it's going to flex. Feel on yourself. I'm feeling my neck only for reference purposes. Okay, and then, so I've got this roughly established. Again, this is just out of my head. You know, I'm just going with what learning anatomy has taught me. Okay, and now I'm going to try to figure out from there the deltoid. How is the deltoid? So I know I've got the acromion process, I know the spine of the scapula, and so the scapula from this direction should be doing something like this. So then the deltoid is still coming there, but now it's going to be a bit of a different beast. And if you put your arms above your head, you'll feel the deltoid is also one of those things that's really flexing. So I need to refine those portions. The acromial portion, spine of the scapula. Okay, and any image, I'm not even looking at images right now, but any image will also help you see, you know, a little bit of that pulling that's happening there. And then the acromial portion, once you find the acromion process, you really got to work that acromial portion. And then you need to come around and work the clavicular portion. Okay? What is his arms doing? They're raised up as in hallelujah. So his arms are going to be, his hands are palm out basically. So we're going to get this twisting around a little bit. It's going to be twisting around to this other side. Okay, and we can drop out a Dynamesh and divide this just to make the smooth less impactful and evasive. And that'll give me just the chance I need to make this really sit a little better with me. Acromial portion, I'm gonna have that kind of rotating out here as well. And then we're gonna have the tricept. Okay, and the tricept is going to largely straighten out because the arms are raised up. So there's definitely going to be some compression in there. Not compression. It's the wrong word. It's the absolute wrong word. We're going to have some stretching. Okay. The long head of the triceps is connecting to the triceps, or to the scapula. The medial and the lateral heads are connecting to the humerus, so you don't want things to get too far away from wherever you think the glenoid cavity is. because they are going to stretch. This is going to raise things, but it has to hold fairly close to where you think it's going to be. Now the pectoralis, that's going to get also up here, and usually get a little bit of a hit right there. We've got the clavicular portion, which will be a little bit compressed, or it's just not stretched as much, and then get that, and let's make sure we really dig the armpit in, and then we'll get the, there we go. And then the rib or the pectoralis attaching to the sternum. Okay, and then things are getting stretched, so don't be afraid to have the sternum show a little bit. And then along with the sternum, don't be afraid to have, I'm going to put the clavicle above it, have a little bit of the second rib going across and the third rib, and then just smooth them out a little bit. But it's just nice to have them showing in there. Don't forget to look at it from all angles. Really get that armpit in there. I'm using trim dynamic to really reinforce the side of the rib cage, and from that kind of emphasize some of the transition into the external oblique. Okay, and the lat. So the lat is going to sweep all the way around, and it's kind of coming high up, but it's on the inside of the triceps there. So that's one of our missing pieces right in there. Let's put it right there. Remember, it's on the inside of that tricep. Alright, lots of tragedies going on there. But nothing really horrible. Alright, so we got ourselves a nice little base, ready for us to figure out and start to plane this a little bit better. Of course, it would help having some of that, the arm in there. It's always hard for me to do it like this. Just does not flow naturally because you have to You can't make long strokes. You don't know where it all goes, you know. It's a lot of tough stuff. This is that area where long head of the tricep, teres minor and infraspinatus, teres major, and then the lat are all coming around, and they're just doing different things. Okay, but the tricep is kind of fitting in there in between the teres minor and major. Tough, you know, I'm not getting it right, but I'm not far. And when you're doing this, it's tough. Just tough. That's all I'd say. Just gonna have a tough time. If you don't have a tough time, I would question whether or not you got it right. Again, digging in, making sure that the spine is there. In the male, the muscles are really going to show, so we're not going to have as much. Oops. We're not going to have as much of the spine showing as where I was going with that before I so rudely cut myself off. Would be good to start to define a few things. Let's really make that 10th rib incredibly apparent. Okay, now's when I get to have a little bit of fun, right? I'm going to come in here and start to define that 6th and 7th rib. Okay, I'm just playing right now. But my strokes are describing form, so we'll see if that pays off. Serratus anterior. The pectoralis, I'm really going to make that a straight line. Going to really separate that lat from the external obliques. And then so that starts to make you really want to know where those ribs are. Yeah, something like that. Why don't we just start to describe some of that musculature, right? With the brushstroke itself. I like to give these guys a little bit of some separations. Okay, external oblique. Do I want to switch over to a different alpha too? It's kind of hokey, I think, when I do that. So I usually like to stick with this one. Less hokey. And now, I've probably said this a couple of times. You might be seeing anatomical mistakes that I'm missing. It's par for the course. Don't know if you noticed what I did there. Sculpted the ribs, put the serratus, and then put the external obliques. Kind of just layered the fingers of the external obliques over the top of them. I got the angle wrong though. I was matching the serratus. And what I want to do serratus is going to come down, but the fingers are going to kind of come at it slightly off from the ribs. They just lightly cross. It's quite beautiful. Okay, really make sure I got the belly of that external oblique down near the anterior superior iliac spine. Okay, there's a lot of texturing I don't have on this guy. Cutting in between the abs and the external oblique. And so I'm looking over here, but I'm sculpting over here. Profile sculpting. So this is a constructive process at this point. At this point we would say, we've largely established the forms. Now what we really are doing is coming in and just trying to understand some of the stuff that's happening. And again, I'm not using any reference at this point. It's recommended to use reference, but I just wanted to get in and play, because also one of the things that this is going to point out is my anatomical less than grand understandings. If I'm not getting it right away, then it's because I don't understand it as well as I would like. It's not that I don't understand it. It's not that I can't sculpt it. I'm not making a value judgment on myself. That's what's really important for me to emphasize with you is I'm not making a value judgment. I'm just saying, oh, it's something I don't fully understand. That's it. End of that story. Put a little bit more time into it, a little more love, I'll fully understand it. If it's something I don't really care about, well, I'll probably never fully understand it. It's not worth it. Pick your battles. Alright, symmetry is off. Okay, tensor fascia latae, this leg is going back. Tensor fascia latae. It's going to just establish a nice strong back plane, but also, yeah, that's good. Okay, then I'm going to establish that triangle, rectus femoris. Okay, and then the sartorius. Not bad. I'm okay with that. Gluteus medius. Gluteus maximus. I like to carve the maximus in. Create a little dimple and let that medius really have some volume. Oops, shouldn't be doing that without symmetry. I want to get myself in trouble. Those serratus anteriors are quite large. Let it go, Ryan. Tensor fascia latae. Rectus femoris. Sartorius. Gluteus medius. Gluteus maximus. turn perspective off. And I really want to cut that bottom off. There, that'll help. Put a little perspective on. Just going to emphasize a couple of curves, and I should be careful and make sure to do those with symmetry on. The abdominal is going to get kind of sucked in there as well because it's getting stretched up. Everything's getting stretched up. Toning the serratus anteriors down a bit. Pulling out the pectoralis a touch. Yeah, just seeing what I can do. Again, this is just trying to see what I can do. I'm getting that manubrium pulled forward. So I miss that a lot actually. I mess that up. The manubrium doesn't pull forward as much as it really should. It's a common mistake of mine. Even though I know it's a common mistake, I still make it. It's awesome. Cool. Really sucking that scapula in there closer to the rib cage. Alright, so we're getting there. I think the next thing I might do is really hone in and finish up the upper body stuff, and I'd say we have ourselves a nice little sketch just waiting for me to finish and pull it all together. That angle's not good. This kind of choop, and then that, not good. What would be better is to have it just here and then shoot off. So I need to lower that point, which means I need to pull this in. Get it a little closer to the spine. Then of course that starts to beg, flattening this. Alright, let's get in there and finish up those arms.